Face. Hi, everybody. My name is Donna Gorton. And twice now. Try that one again. My name is Donna Gorton. Welcome to my show, Willows. This week, we are going to be discussing, we had a slight change in venue this week, the Baba Vanga, rather than the babushka lady, as was voted on last week. Sorry for any confusion. I think people got mixed up on the Baba part, and once I took a look at the research, or to start the research on it, I realized that the babushka lady was this elderly woman with a kerchief on over her head who was seen at the JFK assassination. And apparently she took, I don't even know, some photographs or something of it actually occurring that negated the government's story on it, something to that effect, which I figured that wasn't really what people wanted. So I switched it up to the Baba Vanga, who was the also known as the Nostradamus of the Balkans, try that one. And she was a blind psychic medium, so, and a healer. And I figured that was more what people wanted. So that's what we got going, guys. So that's for tonight. I will be monitoring the chat through my group on Facebook, Willows. For anyone who is listening out there, watching anywhere else. Hi, Miss Sandy. I do have a Facebook group called Willows also that people are more than welcome to join me on. I also have a Facebook page called Beyond the Veil. There we go. So my phone's going to be off to the side, and I'm going to be monitoring my chat off to the side. So with that, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for everybody to wander in. There's Renee. Hey, Renee. Andy's in there. So those are, like I said, my Facebook groups people, and Sandy too, Griffin. And people in my group like me to do a little saging before we get started, and that's becoming standard practice. So let's do that while we wait for everyone else to come in. Fire it up. And ignore any weird noise in the background. It's my fan, because without it, it's just too muggy. So it's on the floor this time, so hopefully it won't be as noticeable on the speaker as it was the last time, but I did have it sat up higher. So anyways, let me try not to burn myself here. With this sage, I cast a circle of protection around anyone watching the show or listening anywhere out in the world, wherever you may be, and that protection protects you from any harm, ill intent, or ill will whatsoever. May it follow you outside of the show, and also apply to anyone who may be watching the replay as well. So I will it, so mote it be. There we are, and the ashes up there. And the rest of the burning smoke will go and cover the animals. So you don't hear it at all. Oh, the fan, good. I'm glad you put that in parentheses, Sandy. I was like, hear what at all? Yeah, I put it on the floor today, so at least it's kind of coming up under the table at me rather than straight on. It's just, like I said, it's too muggy. It's not super hot today. It's just, I mean, it's warm, but it's not excruciatingly hot here in New York State. It's just muggy as all get out. And we were just having thunder rolling outside right before we came live. So hopefully power won't be affected either way. I just got a notice from Facebook saying, be ready to start your video. Well, I kind of already did. Thanks, Facebook, for lagging behind. Hey, Brenda, you made it on time this week. So as I was saying before everyone started coming in, and I did put a notice in the group about it, but it probably got in the feed. I don't know if everyone realized it, but last week we kind of had, I think people were mistaking topic things. So we had originally gone and voted on the babushka lady versus the Baba Vanga. And the Baba Vanga was also known as the Nostradamus of the Balkans, and was a blind psychic. And I think that's the topic everybody wanted. And the babushka lady was actually a woman an elderly woman with a scarf tied around her head, a kerchief, who was photographed at the JFK assassination. And she ended up getting photographs that kind of negated the government's view on what happened at the JFK assassination. So I thought you probably wanted the blind psychic instead. I was talking to y'all in your last week's video and couldn't understand why no one was seeing me. Yeah, there was a lot of confusion last week, Brenda, for a lot of people. What Katie thought what had happened was that people had gone to her page, or like her Facebook page, and we're trying to watch from there rather than Soma Fusion or from inside Willows Ben group. So it was just a lot of confusion. Oh, nice. Soma Fusion's 500th broadcast. Well, congratulations to Soma Fusion. We are on approximately number 139 for Willows Ben. Because I'd lost all my previous archives, it's best guess where I was at prior to losing my old shows. Excuse me. So I kind of just restarted the count on it. It's been 3 years at any rate. I could probably do out the math. I do know I've only ever missed 2 broadcasts ever in that 3-year time. One because I was driving back from an event 2 years ago and couldn't go live. And the other was because I was, Facebook was responsible for that time. So I take no responsibility for that one. So that was it. So I could probably do out the math. I just never have sat down to add it up. Figure 52 shows a year. 50 times 3 is what? 6. Carry I can't do math in my head. Anyway, I can't do math in my head. I can write it out though real quick. Let's see this real quick. Now I'm curious. 6, 15. All right, so minus 2. So 100. Okay, so approximately the 154th episode of Willows Ben, and I have down 139. So a little bit off on that number. I'm going to change that. A little more accurate count. It's more for me that I keep track than anything else. Hi, Ted. So 154th episode tonight of the Willows Ben. But anyway, like I said, I can't do math in my head. So, okay, I'm decent at math. I just can't do it in my head. All right, so the Baba Vanga tonight. Who was the Baba Vanga? And tonight's show probably is only going to run about an hour, just as an FYI, everybody, because, there's only so much information, and she has since passed away, and you'll see why as we get going and talking about her, why it's only going to be, there's not more. I'll tell you why. So, who was the Baba Vanga? Baba Vanga, not a woman who was not involved in a political scandal. LOL on that one. Her name was Vangelia excuse the pronunciations, Pandiva Gushtarova. Oh, that was pretty good. Gushtarova. I rolled that one. AKA Baba Vanga. Baba means grandmother in Bulgarian, and Vaga was her last name. So she was a mystic, clairvoyant, and an herbalist from Bulgaria. Baba was born October 3rd, 1911, and crossed over August 11th, 1996. She was blind since early childhood and lived most of her life in the Rupite area in the Kozu Mountains in Bulgaria. Her name I've seen 2 spellings of her name in different resource sites. The main one, I think the correct one, is the Vangelia, and others they spell it slightly different with the Leah part. But anyway, she was born prematurely, and she had a host of health issues, and they thought that she would not survive due to all the health issues she had. And medical care was kind of lacking back then in 1911, so they thought she wasn't going to make it. The Baba's mother died while she was still a young girl, like little girl. And her father was in the Bulgarian army during World War I. I almost think my chat froze. Get up to date there. So she had to rely on the kindness, really, of neighbors and close family friends to kind of support her for most of her youth. Vangelia's father eventually did return from the war and happened to remarry, so she had a stepmother from that point forward, and they went on to have other children as well. So what was the turning point in her life? Now, what she considered the turning point for herself was at approximately age 12. She recounts that a tornado, or what she called a tornado, I think that it was a severe dust storm that happened. Allegedly, it lifted her into the air and threw her into a nearby field. After a search lasting like 3 days, they finally found her, scared, of course, and she was injured, but she was alive. But her eyes had been filled with debris from the storm, the sand, dirt, etc. She wasn't able to open her eyes due to the pain involved. There was really only enough money to pay for part of the surgery that she needed in order to fully save her vision and to heal her eyes. Because again, to the damage done, I'm sure there was a lot of stuff that got into her eyes and scraped insides of them and cut things up pretty good. So they couldn't fully fix it. In fact, in pictures of her that are most commonly seen, and I posted one of them in the group as the show remind her, it almost looked like she had maybe had one of her eyelids sewn shut, because like there wasn't opening at all, or there was no slit to it even. Some blind people just keep their eyes naturally closed because, well, you don't need to keep your eyelids open. But this one almost looked like it had been sealed shut and grown over. So I think that may have been the solution for that one. Hi, Kim. So she did eventually go on in 1925. She was taken to the city of Zemun, in the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes to attend a school for the blind. Here, she did learn to read some Braille, play piano, learn knitting, cooking, and cleaning skills. But her family was quite poor, and after the death of her stepmother, she had to return home to care for her younger siblings. So she didn't have much formalized education, though like 3 years worth in the school for the blind was kind of the extent of her formalized education. It was enough to at least give her some skills for independence, to take care of herself in a household and, kind of manage her way in the world. But she certainly was not a learned woman by any means. But she got by. Hey, Erin. Okay, so in 1939, she contracted pleurisy. You know what? For those who may not know, pleurisy is an inflammation of the membranes that surround the heart and lungs inside of the chest cavity. It can be quite painful and debilitating. I can attest to this. I had it myself as a teenager, and I woke up in the middle of the night thinking I was having a flipping heart attack. Every time I'd go to draw a breath, the pain was so intense. I mean, I had all I can do to kind of wake my mother up, who was not thrilled with getting up in the night for an emergency room visit, but turns out it was something. It wasn't just imagining it. So I ended up having to be I don't know what the treatment for it was back then. You can be on analgesics for the pain. Sometimes you'll be given anti-inflammatory medications. And I had to wear a rib brace to help kind of support and condense those muscles, so that, because that's what causes so much of the pain, is movement of the lungs expanding. So anyway, hers remained largely inactive for some years, but doctors that that she would die from it, but she quickly actually went on to recover from it completely. So it can be quite serious if it goes unchecked. During World War II, now by this time, Vanga attracted many people, believers, in her abilities to heal and soothsay, as it was called over there during that time frame. She was psychic, and many wanted to know if their loved ones were alive, or they were looking for where they may have died during the war. And she was able to pretty accurately predict. They said that she had about an 85% success rate with her abilities, which is pretty good. She was been visited by the Bulgarian Tsar Boris III for guidance and on whatever he met with her about. So she also was a healer. She mainly healed. She was an herbalist. So, she was able to identify correctly, hey, Stace, what was wrong with whomever came to her with health issues, and using natural herbal remedies fix them essentially, and they got better. So, and she would correctly, identify the issue. So her healing abilities were not as sought after as her psychic abilities were. So on May 10th, 1942, Vangelia had married a Dmitan Gushtarov, which is where that last name comes from, who was a Bulgarian soldier seeking his brother's killers, who his killers were. He promised he wouldn't seek revenge, but he needed to know for his own closure who they were, who killed his brother. So he came to her seeking that information. That's how they met. So shortly after, she became quite well known. Now, her husband, I would have to guess that based on familial structures back then and gender identity roles between husband and wives, men and women, that he probably would have been slightly threatened by her fame and, her popularity that was growing exponentially all the time. And he did join the military, the Bulgarian army, and he did go and serve in World War II. However, when he returned, he fell ill, also became an alcoholic, which led to the downfall of his health and eventually his death on April 1st, 1962. So she was then on her own. To my knowledge, I didn't read anywhere that it said that they ever had children. So I don't think she did. She continued to be visited by both commoners and military alike. And after World War II, Bulgarian politicians and leaders from different Soviet republics sought out her counsel and guidance on how to proceed with, especially during the time frame when things were so tense worldwide with those different nations, on what's the best way to proceed, how to stay that one step ahead, to stay the global power, etc., and which move to make on the chessboard of the world. She obviously was accurate enough that they kept coming back to her. So that's what I can say on that one. Of course, CND. So Vanga did end up crossing over from breast cancer August 11th, 1996. Her home went on to be turned into a museum that opened its doors to visitors on May 5th, 2008. Now, that's pretty much the biography side of her. So you have like a life history to understand kind of her background. Now, her work, quote unquote. Now, Baba Vanga was only, again, semi-literate, meaning that, she wasn't super well educated in Bulgarian, but she could read some Braille and Serbian because it was a Serbian school she had attended for the blind. So they taught her how to read Serbian. So, but she was, she could do some with Bulgarian language, and her predictions were captured by staff members. So here's where it gets interesting for her predictions and the recording thereof. Dignitaries with the Bulgarian government found her valid and accurate enough. They gave her her own staff. So they gave her like a couple of secretaries and so forth of her own to utilize as she saw fit. A salary, she was on the payroll and everything for them, on the state's payroll in essence. And so she would be at their service and they helped cover the cost of everything for her, but set her up with a staff. None of them got recorded, however. Out of all of her predictions, nobody thought to write them down. Interestingly enough, there is no real written history of what her predictions were. So it would be like told to an individual who would then take it away during their reading and go off with it. Her staff might be sitting in on the readings, but nobody was writing it down. This kind of blew my mind. This was, far enough into evolved human history to be able to, jot a few notes, if you will. Nothing was written down. So it's really difficult to attribute all of which ones were hers and which ones were made up by her followers, if you will. And especially with the advent of online and the internet, many followers, there are people who still come forward and claim to have had a reading from her, or, hey, my grandmother got a reading from her and was told X, Y, or Z about the future. And here's what was said. But again, there's no written history. So they even think that, or at least the skeptics think that some of the ones that are out there attributed to her weren't really made by her. I don't know if that's actually true or not, or if she did actually make them. The only one for sure I could not find anything on was there kept being reference to some predictions she allegedly made regarding the death of Princess Diana. I could not find anything online stating what that prediction was anywhere. And I looked through a couple different search engines under every phrasing of that request I could think of, and I could not find anything other than mentioning she made a prediction, but not what it was. So no clue on that one. But the others, I mean, the reason why she got called the Nostradamus of the Balkans is, so for anyone who might be familiar with Nostradamus's predictions, he did write all his down, and they were called quatrains, and they were in French. And the way he wrote them down, none of them were specifically dated to be like, oh, this will happen in the 1970s, and this is going to be the event that takes place, and this is what it's going to be. They were more almost generalized in that someone could take his quatrain, whatever prediction he wrote, apply it to a situation we had encountered in our history and say, see, this is what this was. He was right. Well, some of that was done with Baba Vanga's, that, because again, nothing of hers was written down. So it was kind of saying, well, this makes sense that this is what she was talking about. Now, there are those predictions of hers that were very much listing a date attached to them of when she thought they would happen, but there were plenty that also didn't. So again, for many of her prophecies, her naysayers listed them as being fake, even if, or attributing to her that she might not have ever made. And again, we don't know the difference. So what I am going to be doing in as far as the notes is addressing what those predictions are said to have been. Make up your own mind, because that's all you can do, because there's no written history of it. So we can't look at any source and say, or go back in some book and say, well, here's where she told this person this directly, and that's guaranteed. We don't know that. So sources like the Weiserfield Guide to the Paranormal. Hey, Tanya. They claim that she foretold the breakup of the Soviet Union, the Chernobyl disasters, the 9/11 attacks, and the tensions with North Korea. There are predictions regarding World War II circulating online that, again, she never made, but we don't have any way to prove that she did or didn't, because nothing was written down. It's really frustrating in that respect, especially because I'm a nitpicker when it comes to research. Like, I'm going to research it out to the final degree till I'm pretty well comfortable and sure 100% or as close as possible that something is valid or not based on the research. And to have something be so vague is kind of like, there's got to be something somewhere. And for the life of me last night, I could not find anything. In fact, that ended up being the end result, where sources were starting to say that, yeah, none of this was written down. So best guess, she didn't say it. We don't know. So in 1966, following the rise in her popularity and accuracies, the Bulgarian government, like I said, they put her on the state payroll, and she was given 2 secretaries, so I was right on that, in a panel to interview potential patients for her healings. So what's that YouTube address for? Is that where to see the show at, Katie? Just saw that put in there. So they put her on a payroll. They gave her a couple secretaries, and they gave her a panel of people to interview possible patients for her healings. She was also studied for basically validity of her abilities through the Institute of I love the name of this, the Institute of Suggestology. Exactly, Sandy. That's what I thought, that you would think that they would have tape recorded it. My member Sandy Griffin actually just said that, and that was my thought when I was reading the research, was like, did nobody have a freaking tape recorder back then, even amongst the dignitaries or whomever? You would think the governments would have had access to it, and yeah, there is no anything like that. So the Institute of Suggestology, which I just love the name of that. That's really funny. Of parapsychology in Sofia and Petric, Bulgaria. They had basically did studies on her to find, is she valid or not? And again, it was kind of shown that she had up to 85% accuracy rate with her predictions. And here is one example of one of her predictions. So it was under the heading of Death of an Actress. So early in August 1976, a Yugoslavian singer and actress, Silvana, bear with me, Armanulik, there we go, was on tour in Bulgaria and decided to meet with Baba Vanga. I know, and maybe they didn't have the equipment. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me that nobody anywhere thought of writing it down or tape recording it one way or the other, validating, that kind of blows my mind, especially after being put on the payroll for the government. You would think that if they could put her on the payroll, they could give her a staff of people, then they should have been able to afford a tape recorder. Just my thinking, but yeah, that's me. So this actress was on tour in Bulgaria, decided she wanted to meet with her. And so like the Baba Vanga in this meeting sat with her back to the actress while staring out the window for a long while. Well, she couldn't stare because she was blind, but she sat facing the window with her back to the actress for a long time and wouldn't speak. And when she finally did speak, she was basically dismissing her. And these are direct quotes that came from the actress to, I guess, in telling somebody about what happened, or maybe her staff saw the reading. Quote, "Nothing. You do not have to pay. I do not want to speak with you. Not now. Go and come back in 3 months." And then the actress turned to leave. And then she piped up again. "Wait, in fact, you will not be able to come. Go. And if you can come back in 3 months, do so." The actress took this as kind of like an omen to her death. Like she was predicting her death as to why she might not be able to come back. And like a confirmation. So she left Baba Vanga's home in tears over thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die in less than 3 months. Guess what? The actress died 2 months later, October 10th, 1976, in a car accident with her sister. So, and that's why she said, if you can come back in 3 months, I don't think I think she saw her death. And now anybody who's ever had a reading from me as a psychic medium, I always caution people when they make a request about a futuristic question to keep in mind that anything I give is a future vision of something that is only valid right then and there in that moment in the reading, because after you leave the space of that reading, any one of your actions, your anything, and you leaving, anything you have changed about how you're going to do things, or anybody else involved can change the outcome of how it's going to turn out. And hence it's going to end up being different probably than what I predicted it to be. And I always give people that caution in any reading I give. And I don't do much with that because of that it's so easy to change the outcome. I don't want people running to the bank with my predictions saying, well, Donna said this and it didn't turn out like that. No, because you went and freaking changed the path you were on to get there. And so no, you couldn't get there in that case. So in any future prediction, it is a probable future. And those who are from my Seth Speaks book group will understand what this means. The probable futures are, they haven't come to pass, but just that any decision made along the way by anyone involved can change the outcome of how it turns out. And so it could continue in that vein, but it's not necessarily going to be concise that's going to be what it's going to be based on your own choices. So she thought perhaps to give that out as a warning, and that was how she was seen as being 85% accurate. You're going to take that into account, that, well, choices can change the outcome. So followers of Baba Vanga even believe that she correctly predicted her own death. She dreamed that she would die on August 11th, which she did, and that a 10-year-old blind girl living in France would inherit her gift, and that people would soon hear about it, this young girl. It's unknown about the 10-year-old girl, if she was ever identified in France. I found no mention of a name of a 10-year-old girl who suddenly acquired the gifts, who had been blind. So that part of it, I don't know if that came true, but she was correct on what day she was going to die. So, studies on Baba Vanga. In 2011, a documentary, thank you, Stace, a documentary about Baba Vanga was released. Yes, absolutely. Free will change the outcomes. So there was a documentary that was made called Vanga, the Visible and Invisible World. One of the first studies of Baba Vanga was initiated by the Bulgarian government and is described in the 1977 movie Phenomen, which I'm guessing is phenomena in possibly Bulgarian language. It's spelled Fenomen. According to the study, about 80 to 85% of her predictions are accurate, like I said. So in pop culture and her criticisms, so Vangelia was also a 24-episode TV series, and was a 24-episode TV series with elements of mysticism, was commissioned in 2013 by Channel 1 Russia, which, however, they do arrange their channel stations in Russia. This was a TV show. Her predictions and their criticisms continue to appear throughout mass media within different countries and languages. It gets tracked. She's still quite popular in Russia. There's even an online project dedicated to her called, quote, The Great Encyclopedia of Vanga, which I'm assuming would be all of her different predictions. But again, none of them were written down at the time, so I'm guessing it would be based on recollections of readings she had done. My full attention is here, done working but taking a break, packing. Hi, Karen. Well, lots of crystals can be good. So there is like a page that you can go to called the Great Encyclopedia of her predictions. There was an odd incident that did occur. So there was, and I don't understand fully the why behind this response from her, nor was one offered. So I guess it's going to be up to you to interpret it as you will. Now, I'm guessing this was this gentleman's first name, as unusual of a first name as it would be, but it was a Metropolitan Nathaniel, but it was spelled differently, which led me to believe that it was possibly a Bulgarian name, who was invited to Vanga, but to her house. And Metropolitan, again, I'm guessing maybe his first name. Not sure, but that's what they said in the research material. I even looked it up on another site to validate it, and it was the same thing. So he visited her with the relic, with the cross particle of the Holy Cross. And these are very common, especially in Catholicism, to have what is billed as being a part of the cross that Christ was allegedly crucified on. And of course, there can't be a cajillion of these things out there. So this reference material just listed it as a particle of the Holy Cross. Here's what happened. Very odd. So Vanga was speaking to someone when she suddenly broke from her conversation. Her voice changed and became low and hoarse. With effort, she said, "Someone has come here. Let him immediately throw it on the floor." And right this, it capitalized. Floor. I know. Slow speaker. Hopefully, maybe it's just thunderstorm. Stunned people asked her what was wrong, and then she broke into a frantic cry. "This! He holds it in his hands. This prevents me from speaking. Because of this, I can't see anything. I don't want that to be in my house." And she kicked and swayed out. Bizarre, right? And that was all that was said about the incident. I don't know what would have led to her response with that over an alleged holy, like Catholic relic, but you didn't hear what I said. Okay, so I'll repeat it. I was kind of glitchy, and I don't know why. I just glanced up and said, "Oh, kind of like doing matrixy movements here." So, this Metropolitan Nathaniel was his name. I'm guessing a Bulgarian name. That's how they referenced him. So he visited her, and he had a relic with a cross, relic of a cross with a particle of the Holy Cross in it. And here's what happened with the incident. Again, it's very unusual. No explanation was given for it. It just listed this like this was her reaction. So she was speaking to someone when she suddenly broke from her conversation. She said suddenly her voice changed and became low and hoarse sounding. And with effort, she said, "Someone has come here. Let him immediately throw it on the floor." Now, in writing, it and like words like it, this, and that were in all capital letters. So emphasize, right? So I'm gonna just emphasize with my voice. Let him immediately throw it on the floor. Stunned, people asked her what was wrong. Then she broke into a frantic cry. "This! He holds it in his hands. This prevents me from speaking. Because of this, I can't see anything. I don't want that in my house." And she allegedly went on to kick and sway. You always have mind gutter. So again, very unusual reaction. Now, I don't know if Christianity was her original faith. I'm not sure. Uh-oh, sorry guys. Sorry. I didn't mean to drop you on faces. Sorry about that. I was actually going to turn off my fan because my, with the thunderstorm we just have been having, it's gotten cooler in here. I think it's the humidity that has led to one of the legs on my table sticking to my floor. I have tennis balls on the bottom of it to try to have it slide without marking up the wood floor. And one of them, I don't know, maybe it's worn off the fuzz rid. I don't know. So bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to reach over. There we go. Oh, Lord. That was a big experience, wasn't it? Try to just pull it back in gently without incident. I know, Sandy, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know, Tanya. Nothing was like explained about her reaction being so violent to that. I guess, again, I would assume, her, maybe being Bulgaria, they may be Roman Catholics there or, Orthodox, but, it's still a Christian faith. So to have that kind of reaction to it, I don't know. It was not incident that I thought I would include simply because of its oddness. So there were times where Vanga was incorrect with her predictions. I know. At least the whole tablet didn't fall on the floor. That would have been worse for you guys. So, of course, there's always skeptics with things like this. We know how that works, and I certainly do, considering, that I publicly use my gifts and have naysayers too for it. it was this cross relic. Apparently, it was a cross that had a particle. Allegedly, it was a particle of the cross that Christ was supposed to have been crucified on. It had allegedly it was considered a holy relic, meaning that it was a sacred relic that had allegedly, there was a whole bunch of them out there around the world that people have that allegedly have a piece of the original cross that Christ was supposed to have been crucified on. And the it part was this cross. So she reacted this way to the cross. And the relic being, that it had the piece of it in there, very unusual. And there was no explanation for the reaction given, but it was an odd enough occurrence that I thought I would include it in the notes anyway, just because of its oddness. The odd factor. No, that's okay, Nancy. Never missed too awful much. A red balloon. So of course, field days when she was field days. Skeptics had field days with when she happened to be wrong with her predictions, and they would ignore the correct ones, saying, write it off as being, that it's a coincidence, whatever. So while it's difficult to say what she really predicted or not, and what was made up by others or attributed to her, hard to say. Now the same occurs again with Nostradamus, making things fit or making them up to their gifts and add to the mystique of it all. So let's see what's out there on this. Now, I just took what is attributed to be from her and throwing it out there, and it was translated based on what she said. Obviously, I'm not going to be rolling Bulgarian off my tongue anytime soon, so it's the English translation of them, but they're attributed to be from her. Whether they really were or not, who knows? Best guess. But Nostradamus, again, he was the same way. He wrote all these predictions, but didn't put any dates on it. And his were very, they were basically, what's the word I want? Metaphoric in nature, where he would say, like, the red dragon will fly across the sky at noon and taking down the lonely earthworms on the ground. You'd be like, wait, what? And, that was a made up example, of course, but similar in nature to that. And it would, people would be like, oh, he's talking about this with that, and this fits this, and this makes sense, and this. So they take what he wrote and apply it to a situation that we've already encountered in our lives that say, that's it. And people have done the same thing with her predictions. So again, kind of, have it, use your own discretion on it, I guess. So, I mean, it seems realistic to me that she could have made up these herself. And again, the only one I really could find no mention of what the actual prediction was, but that she allegedly made one pertain to Princess Diana's death. It was said that she predicted it, yet I could not find a prediction on it to save my life out there. I searched everywhere under every possible thing that could be found under, and I didn't find anything, but it said that she made a prediction accurately predicting her death. But it was like said in passing. So in a article about her predictions in general, it would say, oh, well, she predicted everything from the 9/11 attacks to Princess Diana's death. So I was like, okay, well, then what did she say about how Princess Diana would die? I could not find a single thing out there. So let's start with this one first. COVID-19. That's hot in the media, of course, obviously, because it's still occurring. So there was a woman named Nishka Lobeva who saw Vanga back in 1996, just before her death. And she claims that she was told the corona will be all over us, quote unquote. She didn't know what it was meant, as in Bulgarian, the word corona means guardianship. So she thought it had political meaning, that, like, Russia would have guardianship over Bulgaria or something. She wasn't sure what she was talking about. It's also said that She mentioned the virus also back in the 1970s when she predicted that around the end of the first decade of this century, there'd be an epidemic of a new deadly disease that would spread throughout the world and killing many people. She also said that it would begin in China and that a vaccine would take a year to develop. Yeah, the corona will be all over us. But again, the woman, I think, and she kind of just wrote it off until the coronavirus became a thing. And then she was like, oh my gosh, that's right. She did say this. But in Bulgarian, corona means guardianship. So she took it as something political and then wrote it off. So, again, whether she made that part about the vaccine or not, I don't know. Again, nothing was written down about these predictions. So that's what's said that she said. As an aside, Baba Vanga was also called the Nostradamus of the Balkans. She also allegedly predicted, according to her followers, I did like a kind of a 1 through 10 listing of different predictions that she made. It is kind of hearsay, Karen, absolutely, because nobody wrote anything down. There were no tape recordings or otherwise. So it's people coming forward and saying, attributing them to her. But, it's probably is quite correct to say that there are those that attribute things to her that she never said, because who can back it up? So according to her followers, I put that little addendum in there. She did allegedly also predict, the first being comment from YouTube, maybe she channeled the evil doings in the Vatican. Maybe, yeah, that's possible. For whomever did make that comment on YouTube, thank you. And yeah, maybe she did. Or it could have been something hidden inside the cross that was not of, Orthodox. If Orthodox Christian Catholic was her faith, which I'm not sure, that's my guess based on her location of the world. But if it was something other than a sacred, relic of the cross that was supposed to be in this crucifix that this guy brought in, well, she could have been sensing something else, demonic in it, or whatever you want to call it in there. Who knows? But it was just a really odd reaction to have in response to a cross that was supposedly carrying a relic of the Holy Cross. It was not at all characteristic of her. In any of the research I did, I'd never read about another response she had like that. So probably didn't want it to get out. What do you mean, Renee? Like her predictions? Well, again, she was given by the Bulgarian government a staff of people. She had like 2 secretaries and then a panel of people who would interview potential patients who were coming to her seeking healing. So like she had people from the government and she was put on their payroll. So like, it doesn't seem like it would be necessarily hidden unless it was of political nature given to a political figure who came to see her for a reading, and she told them something that could be used military wise, whatever, for an advantage. Then I could see definitely keeping that secret. But the rest of it, I don't think it would be needing to be held. The Vatican had a lot of evil doings happening. Yeah, they certainly did, and they still do. Less than what there has been in the past, but it's everywhere. All right, so she also allegedly predicted, according to her followers, this is a direct quote, horror, exclamation point, the American brethren will fall after being attacked by the steel birds. The wolves will be howling in a bush and innocent blood will gush. Now, this is thought to be, can we guess, the 9/11 attacks. And interestingly, regarding the wolves will be howling in a bush. Now, the ISIS that was responsible for the 9/11 attacks on the trade centers in New York City back in, way back when, they also, they called themselves, now these were Muslim extremists. Every religious group out there has extremists, and I, am in no way, shape, or form ever against anybody pointing a finger at any religious group saying you're all bad and you all suck, because not everybody has that and has the same beliefs as that. There's extremists in every group. So the extremists who were involved in those types of terrorist attacks called themselves wolves. So the wolves will be howling in a bush. They would keep themselves hidden. And that innocent blood will gush, meaning, obviously there were so many killed and impacted by that. Right, the Muslims are good people. Most are, as are, there's plenty of Christians who are good people, plenty of Jewish people. I don't target any group because there are extremists in every religious faith system out there. And that's the ones who are responsible for that. So that was interpreted to mean the 9/11 attacks. Horror, horror. The American brethren will fall after being attacked by steel birds. The wolves will be howling in a bush, and the innocent blood will gush. The second one was the 44th U.S. president would be African American. Now, would she have used the term African American way back when she was making some of these predictions? Probably not, is my guess, but it was worded as such, probably for political correctness on the website. But assholes are everywhere, yes. But she also added that, so she basically, the U.S. president, the 44th U.S. president would be Black, but she also added that he would be the last one. She also said that when he left office, there'd be a huge division between Northern and Southern states, like during the Civil War, which did kind of happen, when Trump came to office. There was that kind of existing attitude, if you will, here in the United States, I would say, to some degree. Not, and there was always talk about, people discussing, are we going to end up having another civil war? I mean, at least in the circles I run in with people I know, that was always a topic of conversation or concern that we could end up in a civil war. The third one is she predicted the demise of Europe, which didn't come to pass, but again, it's, if you consider probable futures, probable realities, that not everything is going to come to pass based on the decisions of the individuals involved make, can change the outcome. So that thankfully didn't come to pass, but she did predict that the demise of Europe would occur. It still seems that way to me. In many ways, there is that, yes. And there is obviously racial tensions that still go on, obviously, now as well. Some people want a civil war. I just want them off my lawn, right? Yeah, no, I mean, it's still, especially like I, for example, went to school with someone who is a huge NRA fan, a National Rifle Association. He likes his guns, and would always be discussing that in his posts about politics and the possibility of having a civil war, and seeing that as the only way to resolve things. So exactly, Karen. So Muslim extremists would cause widespread destruction in Europe that will go on for many years. And the Al-Qaeda, which was an Islamic extremist group, i.e. the Muslim extremists, have been responsible for attacks in Madrid train bombings, the London bombings, Paris, attacks in Germany, France. These all were horrible attacks where many, many people lost their lives, and they were attributed to the Al-Qaeda group, which are Muslim extremists. Why can't we have peace and love? I completely agree. And hi, Pamela. So, that was an accurate prediction. Also, that some Al-Qaeda are called lone wolves, as I just explained. China will go on to become the new superpower, not the US, was supposed to be another one of her predictions. Okay, let me see. Pages stuck together here. Crazy people, yep. Hi, Ted, again. Welcome back. She predicted that by the year 2028, hunger will be eradicated worldwide, which is very possible to accomplish that now if governments could work together and make it happen. The resources are there to cause that to happen and be a thing. But she's saying it would be eradicated by 2028. And obviously, some of these either are not going to be in our lifetime when they're supposed to occur, or we're going to have to wait and see if it plays out that way. The next one was that humans will travel to Venus in search of new energy sources and may even set up a colony there. And NASA has been exploring among the other planets, Venus as well, as to find out whether it is possibly inhabitable or not. So that did come into play, which certainly wasn't around, prior to 1996 when she died. She predicted the ice caps will melt by 2045, and scientists do now estimate that at the current rate of the melt off of the ice caps, that it is probable that they could be done melting off by 2045. The Chinese are very intelligent people, very advanced people. They are. Nope, that's okay, Ted. The replay is always here if you ever, want to see it and are in and out. She predicted the cloning of organs will become like the norm by the year 2046, and it'll be the easiest method of treatment for organ replacement. Now, research and animal testing has already shown this is possible and is probably already occurring with human experimentation with military establishments, hidden bases, etc., deep military stuff. But on this, on a superficial mainstream level, they have shown them growing an ear on the back of a mouse, that sort of thing. And I just had placed an article I shared out earlier today that was talking about the collection of DNA genetic material from pregnant women, allegedly by China, that it was supposed to be to tell was there something potentially wrong as far as birth defects going with the pregnancy, but that the DNA was being collected by the Chinese government for use in the military, and that was kind of in the fine print of the sheet that they signed off on, giving permission for that, the extraction of that material. So scary stuff there, but I felt the melting of the ice caps is just part of our evolution, not global warming. I think that global warming has escalated it myself. I think that it isn't, the earth is very cyclic in nature in occurrences, including, natural catastrophes, etc., freezing, the freezings of things and, dying off of things and so forth. There's natural cycles to an ebb and flow to that. So I think, could our carbon emissions, etc., have escalated that a little bit faster than what it may have happened on its own? Yes. But I think, yes, it probably naturally occurs. Like Hitler trying to make a perfect race. Yeah, it was thought that in this video, it talks about the Chinese military using it to create the perfect soldier. On the surface, they were publicly were stating that it was to be used to try to help with hearing loss at high altitudes for the Chinese soldiers, and something else against some illness or something. But, as well as I do, when it comes to military, it's not as easy and cut and dry as that. They're going to be doing more than that with it. So the video is in Willows Bend and on my Beyond the Veil page. Should anybody be interested in seeing it, it's in there. Yeah, like I said, I think it's a combination that we're escalating the process, but that it is part of the evolution. Yeah, altitude sickness, and it's kind of like, again, the military doesn't do things like that. No military does. You already watched it, yeah. And so obviously it goes deeper than that. It has to. It's the military, and there's a whole lot they're not going to mess out to the public. So in keeping with that idea, yeah, scary stuff. And they're right in a video. Most people don't read the fine print of anything that they sign off on, or they just skim it over. And so, it doesn't get found out. Shared what article, Brenda? You watched it too, Nancy? About the ice caps? They are, Karen, yes. So the cloning of the organ stuff, the shell predicted by the year 3797, everything on Earth will cease to exist. We will be advanced enough to move to a new star system. Again, none of us who are around now are going to be around then to now tell us the prediction going to come true, but that was one of her predictions. That by 3797, the Earth's done for. So, oh, this was a video I shared, Brenda, that I shared out this afternoon. It wasn't an article. So I found it in my Facebook watch videos that I watched. So it's a video that was put out by actually a friend of mine shared the video, and I saw it from her and then shared it out from her. Oh, absolutely. It is kind of scary. Yeah, it was a video. I got it from a friend of mine, April. So astronomers are already in search of other inhabitable planets. Already that search is happening. We know this. So aren't we all aliens already, Lori? Think about it. So it's also said that did you have any weird dreams while watching it before you fell asleep, Nancy? It's also said that she predicted a 2004 tsunami and that a huge wave, this is a quote, would cover the coast and people would perish. And on December 26, 2004, a tsunami occurred in Indonesia, killing over 200,000 people in Indonesia alone, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters ever. We are cute aliens, correct. So that prediction, that was true. That was made in 2004 after her death, or before her, she made it before her death, but it happened after her death. And that was one of the worst natural disasters ever. And it just slipped under the deadline of being in 2004. So she was right on that one. For 2021, she predicted two dates that would face shock, was how the article phrased it. February 22nd, 2020, and December 22nd, 2020. So on February 22nd, 2020, it was announced coronavirus was becoming rampant in Europe. And before December 22nd, 2020, she had said that darkness will obscure the sun. It happened on December 14th. So she was correct on that as well. For 2020, she predicted this one. It could be interpreted a few different ways, I think. So 3 giants will unite and a strong dragon will grip humanity. Now, could that be the Chinese? Perhaps, maybe. The 3 giants could be different military forces. It could be a number of different things, but the dragon reference kind of, reminds me of Asian culture, so is it referencing them? Yeah, maybe, or, North Korea, that type of thing. I think that's part of it for however it's supposed to play out. Obviously, this is metaphysical, and we may have to wait until next year to see how this one is played out. We don't know yet. Obviously, we're not done with the year. Also, difficult time will come and people will be divided by their faith. Ow, stop kicking me. These are always present, but could mean current shifts of consciousness and awareness is kind of what I took from that one. Difficulty will come, or difficult time will come and people will be divided by their faith. I mean, again, they always are, but I kind of took that to mean, the present shifting of consciousness and awareness and things being brought forward, people's attention being brought to methods of control that are put in place by different governments and wrongdoings that are happening out there. In fact, heck, I just saw something I was watching last night before I started research was talking about recent cases of police brutality that have happened. And in just one area alone, one city, there were like 5 different filings of violence reports from cops who have allegedly used excessive force in a takedown event with somebody. I was like, if it's in one city alone, don't you think maybe they might want to like look at that of kind of retraining officers a little bit? So people are starting to stand up though and say, calling this out and saying no more. Everyone's quick to have their phone out to record it and say, like, you're not getting away with this. We have record of that. So that is also becoming more and more widespread anymore. Everyone has a device, right? So she also predicts that cancer will be cured and tied with iron chains, meaning that somehow iron will be the key to the cure. Now, we've already kind of seen where cancer could have been cured decades ago, but research had been confiscated by the government. There have been more than one scientist who kind of found a way that was showing that different means cured cancer, and hey, here's the evidence to show that, and it is happening, and yet miraculously they would get shut down, and the scientists would turn up dead. The research would be taken from them. They would be ridiculed among their peers and lose their careers, and but she was predicting cancer will be cured and tied with iron chains, meaning iron will be a key part of the cure. Happy I grew up before cell phones. Lots of places are all real bad. And yes, things are, coming to light more and more of people calling out different wrongdoings in the world and holding people accountable. So that's kind of how I took that prediction about difficult times will come, people will be divided by their faith. Again, that's kind of what I took that. It's the shift that's been occurring and all the different things that are coming to light and the difference of opinions and everything else that, it is causing that, but not in a bad way. You got to deconstruct before you can reconstruct. So she did correctly predict President Trump would become sick. Her prediction said the 45th president, she said, would become sick with a mysterious illness. He did get COVID. She went on to other things about him going deaf and that he would have some sort of brain damage as a result of his illness. To my knowledge, that didn't occur, but he did get COVID. So that part of the prediction was correct. I've been calling out others before. It was cool. Yes, you have, Karen. So it said everywhere that she, like I said, the Princess Diana's death thing, and I couldn't find any evidence of a prediction, only referencing that she did make it. Also seen people pushing police officers to the limit also. Well, yeah, that's always gone on, but using excessive force with someone, I saw one video with some big Walmart fight that took place between a couple women, and the woman tried to bite him in the arm after a huge long fight with him about being restrained, and after she tried to bite him, he went to throat punch her. Now, great, thankfully it didn't fully land, but it's shown very close up that he did throw the punch and it did partially hit her. He may have brain damage from it. It has some long-term effect. Exactly, like, we won't know that part of it. It's not going to advertise that he's got any brain damage, obviously, but that was part of her prediction. Sorry you got kicked off, Marianne. It's possible, and their cases manifest a little bit differently for each person. So there was one prediction that one gentleman who used to work with her, I think he was like a reporter, and he became a close friend of hers. No, there was no specific predictions on specifically sex trafficking. So this guy was like a friend of hers who happened to be a reporter. They developed a friendship over time before her death. And she had allegedly asked him to not bring certain predictions to light until, like he would know when it was right to bring it to light. The skeptics, of course, are saying, well, he's making them up after the fact to fit the thing. But the one that I want to say it was the 9/11 prediction. And that wasn't given before her, after it already happened, because she was already dead by then. He released it the year before. So, it wasn't after the fact. But apparently he does have more new ones that were never released, but, he's kind of waiting for the right time. Probably not, Karen, sadly, or not for, long time to come. So many of her future predictions concerned alien contact, developing underwater cities, colonizing new planets, and now progress brought to Earth from space, etc. Plagues. Couldn't read my own writing. New plagues being brought to Earth from space, and that obviously we're not going to see about those and for many times to come, because they're supposed to happen over the next 200 years. So we're not going to be here for those. So again, hard to say what she did or did not predict. None seem to be really written down. All have been reported via word of mouth, via personal experiences from those visiting her. But it doesn't really matter how she's viewed. She is still highly respected as the Nostradamus of the Balkans. There's been lots of different psychic mediums that have been shown to have given similar predictions. She kind of discredited, I don't know the whole story with Sylvia Browne. I missed that one, but I've heard about it, that she somehow publicly discredited herself with, I'm not even sure all the details of it, but a lot of bigger psychic mediums have given similar predictions, but again, they're probable futures. So they're not, written in stone that they're absolutely going to come to pass. It depends on the decisions from the people involved. Here, who's there, Karen? Well, that's what I mean, Sandy. There was something involving Sylvia Browne where she allegedly discredited herself on air or something. But even the most, a lot of different, there was another one, Derek Acora, Acora was his last name. He was a famous psychic medium from the UK who was found to be very, very valid. Yet there was one thing where he got set up by a parapsychologist who kind of busted him and then blew the cover off that he was a fake and a fraud. And it tarnished his name because he was shown to be wrong that one time. And, they negate how many times they are right. She said the girl was dead and they found her alive. Is that what that? I never heard the details of what happened with that. So, that's the nature of this business, is if you give one prediction where you're not right on, you don't ever hear the end of it. But if you're not given any credit for all the times that you have hits on things. So fake or fraud, there's no doubt that we're going to the future. Her sports will continue to check in, okay, so looking both at her predictions to come for a coming year, and then also after the year has passed to check back in and say, were any of her predictions right for this year? Let's see. And there was a lot of that going on already online with compare and contrast the year ahead versus the year that's already finished, to say, what did she say about this? Did she say anything about this? So I think that's going to be going on for a long time to come, especially since many of her predictions were given about future times up to 200 years past where we are right now. And technically, if you want to get technical, talking about the Earth ending in the year 34, something or other, Well, after our time this year is over. Well, that's the thing, Aaron, is that many people find that, that those who are skeptic go out of their way to continue to disprove and say, aha, see, I was right. And here, they'd pick up one little piece of evidence where they may have been wrong that one time, but not looking at their track record for validity. So it's not an exact science. And again, with future predictions, as I know that it's not written in stone. So I tend to avoid a lot of that stuff, giving out that kind of information overall, because, again, people take it and run to the bank with it, and anybody's choices along the way changes the outcome. So hers are no different. But again, she was shown to be up to 85% accurate while she was alive, which is pretty darn good. Timelines can change, absolutely. And any choices that either side makes changes the outcome of any event. So, you can change your path. Someone else who's involved in the decision can change what they're going to do, and it's going to change how a situation is going to turn out. So I tend to avoid, unless it's a more generalized thing that I'm answering. Even if I may see more, I don't necessarily give it out to the person, because it can be taken with utmost seriousness and 100%, like this is what's going to happen. And some people can even make something happen because of what you say. So if you happen to be wrong, they're going to create that to happen, which may not be what it's supposed to end up being. So to avoid that, I just don't give out a lot of that. But so there you have it. There is the Baba Vanga. And I thought that was probably the topic people really wanted when they voted last week. The Bushka lady was a political thing where she was seen at, like, I did see the image they were referencing when I went to look it up and start the research, that she was photographed in something to do with JFK's assassination. Just this little old lady with a headscarf on, but she allegedly took a picture when stuff was happening that disproved the government's say-so on how the assassination occurred. Sylvia said there will be havoc, devastations in years to come. Well, that's kind of generalized, but it's true. Well, we have to vote on that, Aaron, right? We haven't voted yet. So topics for next week, we have the Mary Celeste, the ship that turned up looking like everyone just stepped off board and never have been seen or heard from again. The unknown discs of Voldegard, the Tunguska event. The unknown discs are these stone discs that were found in Voldegard, Russia, that no idea where they came from or what they're meant for. The Tunguska event was also in Russia, where it looked like a nuclear bomb went off when there's no, or like a meteorite falling, there's an impact, but there's all this widespread devastation. Evidence in support of advanced civilization that were here before us. So not looking at a specific site, but looking at all of the evidence in support of that fact. And I added the topic of people who vanished without a trace, never to be seen or heard from again. They just vanished, and they were, documented that they vanished. Not just the 411 cases where, that happened mainly in state parks, but just around the world, people just vanished without a trace, never to be seen or heard from again. So there's many of them out there. So the next Willows Bend will be on July 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So the topics: the Mary Celeste, the unknown discs, Voldegard, the Tunguska event, evidence in support that advanced civilizations were here before us, or people who have vanished without a trace. And I see chat moving, but I can't read without getting closer. Hi, Sandra. We're just voting on next week's topic. Tanya says advanced civilization. Let me see. Here we go. Karen says Australia has a famous one. Sandy said the Tunguska event. Sandy Miller says vanished people. Aaron says Mary Celeste and vanished people. Kate Katie says vanishing people also. Nancy says all. Lori says event. Brett says vanish people. I thought that you guys would be interested in that book. Russian hole. You mean the Tunguska event, Renee? There were two that happened in Russia, the unknown discs of Volgograd or the Tunguska event. So specify there on which one. Stacy says advanced civilizations. I got Katie's vote already. Marianne says Mary Celeste and vanished people. Gotcha. Tunguska event. Gotcha, Renee. So we got 15, so it's 2, 5, 6, 7, 12. So 3 people haven't voted yet who are watching. Well, that's okay, Sandra. I mean, if tonight was a slightly shorter show just by the nature of the topic, but we're always happy to have you, and you can always watch the replay. Nancy says Mary Celeste or vanished people. So in case you don't know, we always from a list of topics, I just vote on what's going to be covered for the following week. I go and majority rules, and then I go and research crap out of it and present it the following week. So we had, in case you haven't voted, the Mary Celeste, the unknown discs of Volgograd, Russia, the Tunguska event in Russia, evidence in support that advanced civilizations were here before us, and people who have vanished without a trace. You're not the only one, Tanya, but you're about an hour, almost an hour and a half late. Sure, we always 8 o'clock Eastern time, always for every show I do. So tops run shorter than others, but we always start at 8. Set an alarm. I already put out the event notice and the reminder notice, and going live in 10 minutes notice. So, but all I got, I can't do much more than that. But yes, you can still vote if you choose. So I'll wait a second, see if there are any other votes for this week. If not, it looks like people who vanished out of the race is the winner of the week. Speak now or forever. Please. Okay, so that's gonna be the topic for next week then. I just hummed the Jeopardy tune, waiting for anyone else to vote who is going to vote. So that's the topic for next week, is people who have vanished without a trace. That's the winning vote anyway. It is Jeopardy. So thank you, Sandy. So we have book group on Wednesday the 14th, also 8 p.m. All my stuff always starts 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that's one way to remember that. My voice cut out when you said top. Top what? I don't even know what that means. But anyway, so that's going to be so next show Monday. Topic is going to be people who have vanished without a trace. So book group is Wednesday night, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to go live for readings this Friday or not. Depends on who's interested. So that'll be the topic. Yeah, the topic's the people who vanished without a trace, Renee. So that'll be for next week, and yeah. So I'll let you guys know, obviously, about the readings thing. We'll see. And book group will be Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to hopefully finish up the Seth material and possibly start the next book. So Oh, excuse me. Anyone is welcome to come to that again, 8 o'clock Eastern. So I will see you guys next Monday in here on the 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be talking about the people who have vanished without a trace. So thank you guys all for coming. I appreciate all of you. Love and light to everybody. Have a wonderful, safe rest of the week. And I will see everybody around Facebook land. Good night as always.